And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, the secret oaths, and the secret proceedings.
The show that asks questions about why we don't ask questions.
What the hell is going on?
This is Conspiracy Queries with Alan Parr. Jesuit influence and control over just about everything. I mean, these guys can whack a president or 7. These guys can do horrendous acts and take out innocent people and somehow convince us regular folk that, of course, nothing that horrendous happened, that all these terrorist attacks and horrible political directives are happenstance. Just the way we roll as a species. There certainly are people that do bad things that shouldn't do them, but there is a hierarchy of control, and apparently it's the Pope. Anyway, if you haven't heard that show, I don't recommend diving into this show first. I recommend diving into the first show and figuring it out, because even the Pope isn't who he seems to be. It's all the black Pope. There's a black pope and a white pope, and there's Jesuit influence and control over politicians, and they are asked to do and ask people to do horrible things, and those things are definitely taking place. So listen to that show first, find it, go back a little bit. This isn't going to make a lot of sense to you if you start in with this show, but it is about Jesuit control. It is undeniable. We're back in the secret, undisclosed location, the unusual location. If things sound a little different from usual, that's perfectly all right. We are in a different place, and I can't really talk about why that is or where we are, but it has to do with our own safety and being able to put this show together. Thank you for coming back, Lenny. I appreciate it.
Nice being here again, Alan.
Great.
Yep.
All right. Well, we left things...
well, as a detective, we're on the trail of the assassins, and of course, Garrison led us to Clay Shaw, Vatican, and to Lewis Mortimer Bloomfield, British SOE, and...
Let me clear this up. Lewis Bloomfield is... Let me spell this, because people want to... You know what? People want to know when we start talking about these names. They want to be able to reference them for themselves. So let's say Lewis Bloomfield is Louis...
Yeah,
Bloomfield. Lewis Mortimer Bloomfield.
Who was a director of Permindex. And Permindex was the company that de Gaulle threw out of France and said that it was a murder inc., and it went to the Bahamas and was connected with Sir William Stevenson, who was connected to Bloomfield, British intelligence. And you've got this same battle on one level of Britain trying to get back control of America, its colony. That was one of the levels that was happening, certainly. But, I think also when we talk about Rome, the rise of Rome, and the Caesar and the Jesuits, which are a branch of the Praetorian Guard. They are a branch of the Praetorian Guard, the Jesuits. And, on a metaphysical level, we should always remember that even in the Psalms, it points out in Scripture that the Lord uses evil to destroy wicked men. So we don't study evil animously. We just see it there and study it. And of course, it's not difficult to study. The chief exorcist of the Vatican was quoted in all the major British papers saying the devil lives in the Vatican. So it's all there in black and white. As archivists, we put it together and connect the dots. None of it is our own opinion.
It's just putting research together.
Yeah, putting
and history
and putting together
consistent patterns of history.
Yeah,
there have been several books written by people,
and history's written
hundreds
by the
of years
winners.
ago.
So to find out what really happened, you have to look at good versus evil, and find out who won this battle, who won this battle. Usually, if evil wins, they cover it up right away. If good wins, they keep quiet about it. When the white ops wins, spy versus spy. Mad Magazine showed this. White spy versus black spy. You've got good versus evil. When the white spy wins, he doesn't tell you, so you don't know what's going on. When the black spy wins, beats the white spy, then he covers it up. So you got to understand their strategy, their MO, and then see and how to put together backstage in the global theater what's really happening. And this is what McLuhan and what we call counter-propaganda science, which is a branch of the media sciences.
Give me an example of, as you said, evil doing evil. What was your quote exactly? You said evil doing evil to create good?
Yeah, the Lord, the Psalms points out in Scripture that the Lord uses evil to destroy the good, to destroy the wicked.
Give me an example of evil being used to destroy.
9/11.
What evil was destroyed in 9/11?
There wasn't any evil destroyed. Wicked was destroyed.
Okay. The evil. Give me the example of. Give me a straight, like a little more fleshed out example of.
Well, Jacob and first of all, the whole branch of Ephraim and Manasseh, the part of Manasseh and the king of Israel, which is the President of the United States, an attack on him and his power base and the power base of Jacob. It's all part of Jacob's trouble, which is in Scripture and prophet Jeremiah. Jacob's trouble, and this is terrorism. Remember, in Deuteronomy, the law says that if you don't live my way of life and you change your way of life, then there's going to be terrorism. So because the way they're living, they're hit with terrorism. There's lots of terrorism hitting them. And they're also prophecy to have pillage hastens and looting speeds, Mahar Shalal Hashbaz, and many, many tekel aparsin. The writing is on the wall, just like with the Persia, the fall of Babylon. Nothing's changed here, Alan. The fall of Babylon, the fall of Persia, the fall of Greece, the fall of Rome, now the fall of America. All these huge empires, eventually when they get to the point where, like Caligula, like the ruling elite are corrupt, total corruption, as in the days of Noah, they're taken out. They're completely, the empire falls, and that's what we're living through. I mean, there's a movie, The Fall of the American Empire. These things are all right in front of us, right under our nose. Nobody just thinks about it because they're all given fluoride and kooky music, and they're distracted, and they're being pushed to live at speeds beyond which they're designed to live.
And the economy's crumbling, so you need 3 jobs just to keep up, and you're not thinking about why the economy's crumbling. You're just trying to keep up.
The birthright blessing, which was given in Scripture to the descendants of Jacob, the birthright blessing that was promised was given, and we took over the gates of the world, and the sun never set on the British Empire, but now Britain and America, which is Jacob's grandchildren, they're under attack. The birthright blessing's been removed, and they're losing their dollar. They're losing their system. It's fading, and that's causing panic. And the fact is, look at how it's Jacob's monarchs that are visible. Spain is not part of Jacob.
Well hidden.
They're the Gentile kings. That's the Habsburgs.
Did the Jesuits?
Yeah.
And I mean the top portion of the Jesuits, because as you said in the previous show, you had your fun little loving Jesuits who take in the poor children and feed them food they wouldn't normally be able to obtain.
And doing good.
And they're the good people.
Yeah.
Then you have a similar twist on all of these organizations, such as the Masons, who at a low level will throw fundraisers for weather victims and this kind of thing, and they'll try to help them out, and the Shriners. But at the higher order of things, it seems that the directional thrust is coming from a dark place, and they disguise themselves with their good deeds.
They disguise themselves, but they also, in a very surreptitious way, expose their structure. For instance, on the dollar bill, the pyramid with the eye in only the top block is an example of the structure they use with all their organization. Everybody, the block below the eye, are all the useful fools within the FBI, the CIA, the B'nai B'rith, whatever it is. The useful fools are all there. But it's the only guy who knows the real truth, the real secret, is just the top guy, the chairman of the board of Exxon, or the director of the director of FBI, Hoover. He knew the secret. Nobody else in the FBI knew it. He didn't give it to anybody.
And he was there for how many decades?
Yeah, 50 years.
50 years of that job.
Yeah. So that way they didn't have to share the secret with anybody else, right? They give it to Hoover. He's got the secret. Nobody else knows it in the FBI. Nobody realizes that they're all useful fools to a higher power in Rome.
And
only
we mentioned
Hoover knows that.
We mentioned in the previous episode that
and the twisted world of Maurice Strong.
The control, and we'll get to Maurice Strong. Well, the controlled opposition, where you have one side believing one thing and another side believing the other, but yet they're both controlled, so that the direction of it can be where the Jesuits want it to go, regardless of who's in power.
Right, and this is the subliminal projection. Let me just read from an article written by McLuhan, the subliminal projection.
Marshall McLuhan.
As the new media unfold their powers, the entertainment industries swallow more and more of the old business culture. So, meanwhile, the young are undergoing a total conditioning by subliminal projection, which is quite independent of anything they get at school or college. This very broad and it's confused conditioning via new media. So, new media, they've culturally conditioned the people to think the way they want to think. That was the subliminal projection project that really started after the war.
Is it true that the Jesuits created Islam?
The Vatican created Islam. Is really what I'd say. The Vatican created Islam.
How many
how many Islam are their police force?
How many Islam followers are now throwing the radio across the room?
They're the brown shirts of the Vatican, the Jesuits. They are the police force. They're like the Gestapo. They're the Gestapo of the Catholic Church.
The Jesuits.
The Jesuits. They're the Gestapo, but they didn't use the Gestapo to create Islam. They used another branch of the Vatican psychological warfare division of the Vatican to do that.
How did they do that? How did they create Islam? And how many Muslim followers would be beyond angry to hear this particular claim right now?
Well, let's go back as to the war that's going on now between Islam and Christianity, Catholicism, that is, not Christianity, but Catholicism in Rome. Let's call it Rome. In 600 plus, roughly 638 A.D., the Vatican went to the Caliph of Omar, who lived in Jerusalem, and struck a deal. They both found common purpose. We'll give you the arms to take out the Jews and all the rabble-rousers in Jerusalem. You give us control of the Temple Mount and the other sacred sites of Christianity. And the Caliph of Omar made the deal. They fought the Crusades. This is what started the Crusades. But when the Crusades were over, the Caliph of Omar double-crossed the Vatican and didn't give the Temple Mount to Rome, but put a mosque on top of the Temple Mount called today the Dome of the Rock, a.k.a. the Mosque of Omar, after the Caliph of Omar. So ever since 600 A.D., the Vatican has been planning the retribution and revenge for that double cross.
Since 650 A.D. or something.
No, 638
638 A.D.
Yeah. Since 638 A.D., they've been planning that. One branch of the Jesuits down to the next, passed down from one to the next, to the next, to the next.
Are there any high-level Muslim influential men who know that their religion was created?
Probably Farrakhan.
Yeah?
He might. Fidel Castro, maybe. Castro's a high-level Jesuit. Look at how he's
He's doing all right.
He's controlled the hemisphere. Isn't he in charge of the North American Hemisphere desk for the Vatican?
Well, he certainly had a long reign.
Isn't that why maybe they went after Kennedy? Because one Catholic shouldn't attack a Jesuit? Got to be careful attacking them Jesuits. If you're president, you may wind up being Dealeyized.
Okay, so let's talk about other measures of control that the Jesuits or the Catholics or the Pope have put together, creating Islam.
Rome rides the crowned heads of Europe as a rider rides a horse. And it's right on the European money. This is right out in front, Alan. If you just take and go to Google and Google in
the
euro coins.
Right, and take a look at the picture.
A picture of the woman on top of the bull. That's the harlot riding the beast. It's right in their own coins. They've got it.
It goes around. No one really pays attention.
The harlot is Rome, and the beast are the crowned heads of Europe. It's right in their own coinage. They've stamped it in their own coinage.
So they've got it in the money. They've got it by creating Islam. What other creations have they?
Well, remember there's a famous picture of Mussolini rearing his horse. He's in his outfit, the great Mussolini, dictator Mussolini, and he's holding up, you can get it at Google, Mussolini on horse, and he's holding up the sword of Islam. Because it is the fighter for the church. And Rome used the Muslims to go to war against the Christian heretics who broke away from Rome. And that's why they brought the Arabs into eventually the Mediterranean in the Dark Ages became almost a Muslim lake. The Mediterranean became a near Muslim lake.
Because it was surrounded by
Muslim countries.
Muslim influence control.
Troops. Muslim control. And a lot of that was done because the Vatican used Muslims to go after the rebels who were breaking away from Rome, and they were losing control of their minds. The ability to control their minds with mind control they were breaking away. So they used their sword, Islam, to go to war with the heretics, like Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc, she broke away from Rome and wanted to live according to the scriptures. She didn't want to celebrate false Christianities. She wanted to celebrate a real Christianity out of the Bible.
And so when you're saying mind control back in those days you're talking about
through the sermons, through the songs,
the religion.
Through the religion in the churches, through the monks. Through the churches, they would control the people. Through confession, they had an intelligence agency. You were to confess to the priest. The priest then, that was a whole intelligence agency. Turning taxes, turning the famous, like the Habsburgs are a big family. They'll probably be part of the final beast power. Also, it may come from turning taxes, bloodlines. There's various bloodlines that lead. There's a bloodline, part of the Black Pope, Aldo Brandini. The family Aldo Brandini is one of the bloodlines of previous Black Popes. Can you think of a major motion picture star who probably comes from the family of Aldo Brandini? What name comes to mind?
Well, I'm going to guess Marlon Brando.
Very good. Go to the front of there you go, Alan. It's right in front of everybody. The Black Pope bloodlines is right there on the screen, but we can't read the grammars of these media. I'm a student of the grammars of the media science, a forensic media scientist. So we explore the grammars of the media. And
ostensibly, you want to keep this. When I say you, I mean they, the Jesuit and control issues. They want to keep this under wraps. They do seem to keep it under wraps. So let me ask you, why do they keep dropping these clues in books and in movies and put it in our faces when you would think they would want all of this kind of thing to be well hidden?
They have to tell their
and so
own
much of it
folks
is
in advance. They always let their folks know, their own peeps. They have to let their own peeps in advance know what's coming. I mean, they telegraphed 9/11. They had a show on ABC about planes flying into the building.
The Lone Gunman show.
They had all sorts of. They told their peeps in advance about 9/11. We had Mike Vreeland was here, the ONI agent who dipped into the diplomatic pouch in 2000 and saw the memo from Uday Hussein to Putin that on 9/11 they're going to fly planes into buildings in New York or Toronto or Tokyo.
And then he wound up in jail.
He purposely put himself in jail so they couldn't charge him as being once he broke into the diplomatic pouch, the powers that be knew that he now knew it. So they were after to get him.
And we say the ONI, that's the Office of Naval Intelligence.
So exactly. So in order to, he was worried that now that they guys who were running 9/11, now they realize, hey, one way they do this is a standard operating procedure. They'll blame that guy and set him up as the patsy.
And he knew that.
He knew that. But to stop that, he got himself into a fight in a bar in Toronto, got arrested, put in jail, swore at the judge, so the judge gave him a longer sentence, moved him to a proper facility. Now, how are you going to say the guy, he's protected now? You can't make him an accomplice to 9/11 and on the planes or planning it. The guy's in jail in North York.
And from within that jail, he brought forth the evidence that this was going to happen before it happened.
Gave it to the warden. The warden put it in his safe over a year before 9/11, put it in the safe. And then he asked him to open it up on 9/11, and there it was, the whole story of 9/11.
And if you're looking for this guy, his name is Mike Vreeland.
Vreeland. His code, his ONI carrying code intelligence, secret intelligence name was Wildcard.
Wildcard.
Yeah, he's known as Wildcard. Mike Vreeland. He disappeared and nobody knows where he is.
A lot of retrospectives on 9/11, what happened that day, and people that go after it, and the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Rarely ever does this Mike Vreeland angle come up, and it's so fascinating because basically he's laying it out. It's written down on paper.
You've got to remember that there's so many agent provocateurs. The law of averages is anybody out there talking about this subject is an agent provocateur paid by the NSA or the CIA. I bet you 19 out of 20 guys are agent provocateurs.
Which makes it very difficult to follow the lead.
Which makes it very easy for them to cover it up. And so if anybody's interested in it, they read it like the only guy who got the real story out, and it was really because of at the time, Israel was bashing heads with the Americans. And so thanks to Israel, the truth got out, and that's Oliver Stone's JFK, which is a very, very accurate assessment of what was going on, as accurate as possibly could get.
It was wildly picked at as flawed before it was even released.
Yeah,
I remember criticism.
And Penn Jones, who was the advisor on it, is the guy who I worked with and had in Toronto in the 70s. Whenever Penn Jones would come to Toronto, he'd stay with Lenny Bloom. He stayed with me.
Right. So now we have brought up the issue of intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
There are several around the world. There's several in the United States alone.
And they're all part of the same pyramid.
Countless numbers of them. The Office of Naval Intelligence, the CIA, the NSA, formerly the OSS. In Canada, you've got CSIS, which just made itself known publicly in the 80s. Prior to that, it was just the RCMP. You've got MI5 in England, MI6 in England, supposedly dealing with external and internal affairs. You've got the Mossad, the Shin Bet in Israel. What's going on with all of these intelligence agencies?
Well, first of all, remember that most of the intelligence agencies you just named were bureaucratic structures of intelligence agencies that were offspring of a government nation-state apparatus. But the Secret Service is an intelligence agency of the monarchy, and the monarchy has its intelligence agency, and the country that the monarchy owns and controls has its intelligence agencies. And so you've got CSIS and RCMP, right? And
Canada.
Those are the intelligence agencies of the Canadian government. And the Queen is head of the Canadian government and chief of state. She's head of state of the country, but she doesn't just use, as head of state, use the RCMP for her intelligence. She uses her own intelligence agency, which is the Secret Service, which is an intelligence.
Her Majesty's Secret Service?
Is the British Crown. Exactly. Her Majesty's Secret. It's right in front of us. Her Majesty's Secret Service. And they control all the agencies. They trump. They don't control it. The Queen controls the government of Canada and the Privy Council and the Law Society. The Privy Council chooses the party leaders. The party leaders run for election. Whoever gets the most vote goes back to the monarch and asks if it says, I've got a majority, can I form a government? The monarch says, well, tell me if you can form a government. And if you can form a government, then we'll grant you the right to be the government. And so you serve only with the grace, thanks to the grace of the monarch. That's what happens in Canada. The Prime Minister doesn't make himself head. He goes to the Queen, and she makes him the Prime Minister.
Is there something quite grand going on at the moment? The United States government has made the move, whatever this means, of shutting themselves down. At the same time that's happening, Prime Minister Stephen Harper of Canada, during the summer, said, listen, we're going to once again prorogue government. And for people that don't know what that means, basically the government here in Canada is also on ice.
Yeah.
These are supposedly different reasons as to why these governments aren't fully functioning. But why is
power
that?
Shifts to the rule of the monarchy when that happens.
So what is, do you know of any kind of particular motive right now for both of these governments to be basically static?
Well, sure. I mean, the monarchy has been trying to shut down and get rid of the governments in the United States, the Republic. The Republic is the enemy of a monarchy. So the British Crown and its control of Canada and the British government, as a monarchy, it's interested in shutting down the Republic. That's its enemy. So it's been at war with the Republic since 1776. And the British surrendered, Cornwallis surrendered to Lafayette, the French general. But the British never surrendered in the War of Independence to Washington. So Washington and Cornwallis have been at war ever since. They're still at war.
And who in the American government and who in the Canadian government?
The British Crown is now controlled by the Vatican. It's using the British Crown to destroy the United States.
And who in the United States is saying, no, who, you say there's a battle going on. Who is representing the side that's saying, no, we don't want this. We're going to stay open. We're going to be a republic or a democracy.
Well, there's the white ops versus the black ops.
So right now the black ops are ahead, you would say, with both of these governments shut down.
Yeah,
indefinitely.
I would say the black ops guys are leading the parade. The white ops guys are standing on the sidelines. They're not getting involved. They're watching from the sidelines.
Okay, going back to these intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
Are they all connected? Are they all a facet of
the
one?
most powerful
one,
of course, is Interpol, which is the Vatican police and the Vatican. Interpol, you never hear talked about. It's the most powerful of all of them.
Except every time I watch a movie. And on the DVD it says, don't mess around with this movie because Interpol will come after you.
Interpol is really a world police force controlled out of Rome. Rome's world police force. And they give orders to all the police forces and ultimately all the intelligence agencies. All are overseen by Interpol.
The reason I'm asking this is because so many of these police forces, these secret agencies, not secret agencies, but these intelligence agencies, are ostensibly different. You've got the Russian one, you've got the Israeli one, you've got the Greek one, you've got the English one, and they all have the same symbology, or very strikingly similar symbology, on their logos and their colors.
And to quote Marshall McLuhan in the Subliminal Projection Project article of December 57 from the Canadian Forum, quote, "There is no difference of result between our entertainment industry and the Asian or Soviet brainwashing programs." Once again, there is no difference of result.
And this all predates the internet and videos.
This is December 57. In the Canadian Forum magazine, Marshall McLuhan said, "There is no difference of result between our entertainment industry and the Asian or Soviet brainwashing programs." Unquote.
I wonder what he would say now if he were around to see videos and Miley Cyrus and that
well,
type
I think he'd say that
proliferation of internet and small screens everywhere that people are watching constantly and taking their mind off of what's really going on.
Ultimately, Rome likes a battle between communism versus fascism. And we're in that battle between communism and fascism. Communism and fascism are at war with each other.
And that's how they select politicians, like you say. I know several times.
So it's not good and evil. It's evil versus evil.
Prominent politicians.
Evil is getting sharpened up.
Different kinds of evil versus different kinds of evil.
Yes.
When politicians, as you say, are selected and then they say, oh, yes, can you form a government? I know that Stephen Harper, before becoming the leader of Canada and even the leader of his party, was off to the Bilderberg meeting that year. Several politicians that do well politically.
Yeah.
Before you've even heard of them, Tony Blair. I mean, the list is huge.
Well,
they're off to the Bilderberg meeting to learn things. What are they told what to do? Are they learning what to do before they go back and make a hit home run with their
cults and mind control? And the men are compromised, so they follow orders. And this is the Moloch. This is the worship of Moloch. And the world leaders have been worshiping Moloch at Bohemian Grove for 200 or more years, close to 300 years. All the world leaders have been gathering until now, where it can be electronically spied on. They've had problems. Even evil is being exposed today as we come down to the end times.
That's our only hope, really, to stop any of this, is to expose the evil.
Well, we're all pallbearers. We're all pallbearers on the holding up the coffin of mankind. We're about to bury mankind. Mankind's about to bury himself. He's about to annihilate himself. And we're just watching and seeing how it's going to manifest itself, because you can really see, when Iran gets a bomb and North Korea gets a bomb, North Korea got its bomb, according to Sherman Skolnick, and they got the bomb. North Korea got it from the Clintons. And it's interesting to note that Donald Rumsfeld, Sherman Skolnick pointed out, was on the board of ABB Heavy Machinery Switzerland, which was the company that sold nuclear parts and fuel to North Korea. So North Korea,
then they become the enemy.
Yeah, they make them the enemy. But they're giving them, and of course, it came out after the Iraq War, in the Kuwait-Iraq War, that Britain had issued export licenses to export all sorts of nuclear material to Iraq during the Kuwait War in 91.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Come on. Much hilarity behind the scenes, Alan.
And then they get
racket. War's a racket.
And they always get the trick, the Hill and Knowlton PR company, using tactics devised by Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, to say to people, hey, the soldiers came in and they took the babies out of the incubators and they threw the babies on the floor and they took the incubators with them, and everyone gets angry and they want to go to war. And they make sure that happens almost every time there's some kind of global insurrection, or shall I say, an arms dealer's wet dream.
In the book The Virtue of McLuhan, Professor Thiel says, quote, McLuhan never abandoned his thesis about a Masonic conspiracy, and that his lifelong belief was that his Toronto colleague Northrop Frye was a Mason and derived his eminence as a literary critic from this. McLuhan suggested the year, February 62, the year the Gutenberg Galaxy was published. So this is like an inside. McLuhan was a Jesuit whistleblower. McLuhan suggested the real animus against the book will be felt in Gnostic and Masonic quarters, who will rightly find the rug pulled out from under their matter-spirit bias, unquote. So Northrop Frye was a Freemason. He was sent into the university consciously to detach and get people to not notice that even as far back as William Shakespeare, Edward Devane, the anti-Jesuit, talked about how friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. In a play about the Caesar, about the Antichrist,
three
Julius
different
Caesar,
groups of people there.
He says, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Shakespeare's saying, you know what? Romans aren't your friend, right?
They're a different category.
Different category. Romans are not friends. What was he saying? He was pointing out that Rome as an empire was going to rise as a Holy Roman Empire and become a world power once again. And it's a fascist world power. And that's what we're watching rise up. And look, they tried to assassinate Nigel Farage, the
European
bureaucrat, the European parliamentarian who said, who quoted The Exorcist and the devil in the Vatican and talked about the beast and the whole prophecy coming about. And they tried to kill him.
Now, John Adams was the second prime minister, president of the United States in the 1700s. He lived in 1735 to 1826, and he was quoted as saying, "My history of the Jesuits is not eloquently written, but it is supported by unquestionable authorities, and is very particular and very horrible. There, the Jesuit order's restoration in 1814 by Pope Pius VII is indeed a step toward darkness, cruelty, despotism, and death. I do not like the appearance of the Jesuits. If ever there was a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell, it is this Society of Ignatius de Loyola."
Yep.
That's pretty damning words there.
Well, if you go to the preface of the Holy Bible, King James Version, it says, "Don't be traduced by popish persons at home and abroad who wish to keep us in darkness and chains." So there's a lot there.
And that's in the Bible.
And that's in the Bible, warns us about popish persons. And, of course, Satan's counterfeit Christianity. Time has not been lost. The Middle Eastern prophecy, keep your eye on that. There's the Dome of the Rock. They're going to take that out and rebuild the Jewish temple and start the daily sacrifices. United States and Britain, as Jacob, they're in trouble. In all these tribes around the world, as they retribalize, it's the thugs of the tribe that take command of the tribe, not the intellectuals. So what's happening in the world today, in all these tribes, is the thugs are taking control of the tribe. And when you've got the thugs controlling the tribes, and they've got control of the military and the monarchies, and they're going to war, they'll blow up the whole world. Just like if you'll put your daughter in a bomb around your daughter and stick her on a Jerusalem bus, you're going to take a doomsday bomb and take everybody with you. And I'm sure we're getting close to that. The Antichrist is the one to keep our eye on, and certainly he'll surface too, as well as the two witnesses. So there's a lot we know is coming. It's going to be exciting to watch it happen. Alan, I know that you and I will be able to cover this like we have a gondola in the back seat of the Global Theater, a gondola to watch the grand chessboard game. We've got Lucifer's back.
Just before we go, who and or what is Iron Ore?
You mean the Iron Ore Company?
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the that's Imperial Commerce. That's one of Her Majesty's companies that breeds people who will control her colony.
And
Paul Martin.
Who do we have linked to Iron Ore?
Paul Martin. And,
former Prime Minister of Canada. Former Prime Minister of Canada. Right.
Yeah. And Mulroney and Paul Martin, and there's a whole and Maurice Strong. Don't read the twisted world. Next time we should go into the twisted world of Maurice Strong and how he, used the Rio conference to bring in this whole weather modification as really he wants to deindustrialize. Rome wants to deindustrialize and bring us back into the Dark Ages. The way to do it is, people wouldn't do it if they knew the truth. So you get them to believe that, ecology. We've got to worry about environmental ecology, and we've got to slow things down. We're starting to poison ourselves, and we're heating ourselves up because of our cars, and never mind that Venus is heating up, and Mars is heating up, and Jupiter's heating up. It must be all the cars on Mars and Jupiter that's doing it there too. But never mind that. So you use a phony straw man argument to get people to deindustrialize, which will lead to plagues and the breakdown of the food chain and all that, and kill people and help them destroy them. You don't let them know that's your plan. Your plan is you use Prince Philip has his World Wildlife Fund, right? WWF.
I think every time you're here, Lenny, there's going to be a cliffhanger. So let's reel one out here, because we are just about out of time once again.
Yes, unfortunately, I've got to go. I'm a pallbearer at a funeral coming up, and it's interesting. I think we're all pallbearers carrying the coffin of mankind.
What is a scalar?
We're just looking for a hole to put it in.
What is a scalar weapon?
It's the pallbearer era. We're in the pallbearer era.
Before you go, what is a scalar weapon?
Oh, a scalar weapon?
Yeah.
Scalar weapon is using advanced physical principles to develop a Tesla-like power, using the north and south magnetic poles of the Earth to develop superpower machines, super electric power machines that can create microwave beams that are so powerful they can blow sand traps off the moons of Saturn, as Colonel Paul Bearden pointed out in his wonderful book on Soviet weather engineering and his other book, Oblivion. Valuable books to get by Colonel Bearden if you want to see how they can manipulate and control hurricanes, manipulate and control tornadoes by using Tesla power equipment. It includes HARP, it includes scalar cannons, it includes all sorts of microwave weapons that they can use to take control of your body, take control of your thought, point it at a jet aircraft and force the pilot to crash. They've got all sorts of high-tech microwave weapons, to psychoenergetic weapons, as well as powerful beam weapons. That's what it's all about.
Or a space shuttle?
Or shoot it. Both space shuttles were shot down by particle beams by France. We can get into that another time. The French have done a lot to try and save America from fascism, but they can't do it all, and they're losing their... Remember in the French anthem, study the words of the French anthem. It says, "We will water the furrows of our fields with the blood of conspiratorial kings." Conspiratorial kings and traitorous conspiratorial kings, it says in the anthem. Listen to it, sung by Edith Piaf.
In French, of course.
I used to end all the shows I did with Skolnick with the French anthem.
Well, we may end this one with that. Lenny, thank you for coming.
Been a real pleasure, Alan.
You've been hanging us over the edge of a cliff. Hopefully we'll have
really
time to come
getting
back.
Out again on radio and talking and just going through some of these historical subjects and things that have been going on backstage in the global theater of the absurd.
If you could give the person who can't really wrap his head around this or really believe this but thinks that there is a gravity to what you're saying, what one thing would you say to him? A person who doesn't believe that a countryman could do something horrible to his own countrymen. What would you say? What would be one flicker of light that you could point him towards?
You mean a website?
A website, a thought, any kind of...
I think they could read... there's a lot of books. They you know what? They should read the book Satan's Counterfeit Christianity. Satan's Counterfeit Christianity by Dr. Roderick Meredith. Take a look at that book. That really is a terrific book showing the propaganda and as Nicholson said, Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth. The people don't want the truth. That's the other thing. It's not that they're able to, the good guys and the bad guys are able to just brainwash the people automatically. The people are frightened of the truth. They don't want to know it. Maybe at the end they'll start to turn around.
Well, if you're right, then nobody's listening. But thanks for those of you who were listening. We will return sometime with Lenny Bloom. Thanks for listening to Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. Please offer comments or complaints by emailing conspiracyqueries@gmail.com or on Twitter @con_queries or at our website, conspiracyqueries.com. Thanks for listening.